Hey guys, Coach Michael, Burt the Super Coach, every week coming into your life really to do three things: multiply your life, your money, and your business. And I love spending time with talent. I love reaching up. I love spending time with people that are interesting people. And today I've got Scott Lumley here. I've been a fan of his online. He didn't know it. And he was watching my stuff, and I was watching his stuff.
Yeah, and I was a fan of yours as well. Yeah.
And one of these days, these old, I like to say country boys or Southern accent boys are getting together. So we were talking before the show. We're going to talk about a lot of things. What it takes to be a real entrepreneur, okay? And you've already had a ton of statements for me. And the title is going to be, A True Entrepreneur Doesn't Need a Pep Rally.
That's exactly right.
You've bought, sold real estate, large real estate portfolio, built companies, sold companies. You got a book out called Don't Look Me Up.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating, great title, by the way.
Well, thank you. Well, it come from, it was kind of interesting how it all come about. You know, everybody kept looking me up. And I was like, hey, but you know, you need the rest of the story, you know. And I just didn't have time to tell everybody the rest of the story. So I was like, I got an idea. Why don't you just not look me up?
Yeah, exactly.
And so ultimately, I ended up writing a book about it, and it was a tell-all book. And to be honest with you, when I wrote the book, I thought it was going to be a book about how smart I was. And then I realized at the end of the book that I wasn't very smart, but it was a book about hope and a book about triumph.
Nice.
And also, probably suicide prevention. I'd like to kind of add that in there too, because, you know, when I started off writing it, I didn't realize that all the stories that I had and all the trials and tribulations I had come from, because you try to put that kind of stuff out of your head because you're looking to be successful and you don't think about those things, but those are what define your future. And it's in some cases, and I didn't want those to define mine in totality. So that's how we started the Don't Look Me Up book.
You know, when I think about this concept of entrepreneur, I've always defined an entrepreneur as a person that takes lower level resources to higher levels of productivity. So let's tell the people that are watching this or going to watch this, number one, tell them where you are today. Then we're going to backtrack.
Okay.
Then we're going to go back into the good stuff.
Okay.
Because I think all your good stuff's in the past, and then it's packaged up and sold in the future. So tell people what you're doing today, and then I want to backtrack and talk about and unpack some of your story.
Well, I currently have a company called Resolve Commercial, which is a real estate portfolio company. And Resolve Commercial kind of stemmed off of a process that I did 7 years ago when I was beating the streets and walking and buying properties at the clerk's house, you know, right after the recession. And I was starting to see that a lot of people weren't crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And I found a lot, you know. I mean, it kind of blew my mind that 10 states in the state of Tennessee has never had a tax sale. It's not a tax sale system. I want to get to that point. But anyway, 10 county states of Tennessee had never had a tax sale. So that was very intriguing to me that that just didn't make any sense, that everybody in that county paid their taxes. So as I was doing this, I started buying some small homes and stuff and building some equity, ultimately moving into my commercial portfolio, which now consists of a lot of larger projects, starting a construction company, and I'm kind of moving quickly here, but I started a construction company because I can control. I've always been a little bit of a control freak. I guess I think most entrepreneurs are a little bit of control freaks.
Right.
So owning the construction company gave me the ability to not only buy, develop, it gave me the ability to build and also ultimately hold in my own portfolio and lease it out. So I just kind of brought it all into one package and did it all myself for 5 years. Kind of leaving behind the original process of how I bought the buildings because, as you gain that. And then my 18-year-old son got his real estate license and was going to become a realtor. I was like, well, hold up. Hang on before he went ahead and become a realtor. And I was like, well, hold on. Let's look back at this system that I'd done 7 years ago. So we actually developed into software called RESOLVE Suite.
Okay.
And it's crazy. It's an incredible product.
And the RESOLVE Suite does what specifically?
Basically, what the software does, it takes people. I'd like to take credit saying that I invented this whole system, but I really didn't. What it does, it perfects and allows you to cut down the time of something that took, anywhere between 4 or 5 months to do.
Okay.
Now you can do in 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is it has an algorithm that goes in and goes and looks at all the county clerks and so forth, and it brings in properties that are in distress, or have had issues, either pre-tax or post-tax sales. And then what it does, it allows you to be able to contact the original owners and navigate through their problems and hear their stories. And I mean, there's been some crazy stories. I mean, sad ones, really sad ones. I can give you an example of that real quickly. I had one lady who lost her house. She had filed a Chapter 13. You know, most people, they're not lawyers, obviously, so they don't even understand the chapters of bankruptcy, much less what a 13 means. They just know they're supposed to make their monthly payments, and when they stop, they get a letter that says you've been dismissed, which does not mean discharged.
Right.
But they just automatically assume, well, we've lost our home. So they abandoned the home 5 years previous to that. Well, she still owned that home. So 5 years goes by, no taxes are paid. The trustee in the Chapter 13, he's dismissed it. He don't care anymore. But this house is still sitting there. So our system picks that up.
Okay.
We reconnect with the lady, and we navigate through a deal and ultimately put a deal together.
Okay.
And either put her back in her home or rent the home out, buy the house and rent it
All
out.
right, so let me stop here because a lot of people have ideas, okay? So you saw a need in the market.
I did.
Right? You basically uncovered, I wrote down, how do you make a fortune off other people half-assing something? Sorry to say that.
No, that's exactly right.
But I'm sitting there saying, you uncovered that, hey, they're halfway doing this.
That's exactly right.
They're really not dotting their, I's and crossing their T's. There's opportunity here for a system to come in and capture this information and speed it up to people, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a great way to put it because, it finds the imperfections and
Right.
And the imperfections. I tell everybody where there's problems, there's profits.
That's right.
And if you can find a problem, you can solve it, then it's profitable.
That's right.
It's the people that aren't looking to, a lot of times people will see a problem. And I think because of my adversity, which I think you want to talk
Right.
about here in a little while, I was so used to adversity that I was automatically ready for a fight.
Right.
So when Resolve Suite come along and when this concept come along, I was ready to advocate and fight for somebody because I was tired of getting hit myself.
Nice. Okay. But you don't write code. You're not a programmer, right?
That's correct.
So you saw the vision, and so a lot of people get hung up on this part. You saw a need, but to go capture that need, you had to create software.
That's correct.
Where did you go to do that?
Well, there's nothing in my life that's not interesting or crazy. It happens in a weird way. But I have a dear, dear friend of mine. His name is Trevor Mesnick, and he's in Las Vegas. And you know how you have brothers that they're not maternal, but you just have these brothers, and you can say something, they automatically know what you're going to say before you say it. So we were having a conversation one night, and I was thinking about doing a 506c for some of my bigger properties. And for people that don't know what that is, when crowdfunding become legal, it gave you a chance to take and create a 506c, which means you can raise capital on buildings and unsophisticated investors could get involved. Okay. So that's where I started at, and because I had all this high equity properties, and I was wanting to raise some more capital, want to have some fund capital, fund money, and then all of a sudden, as I was talking to him, I started talking to him about this process from 7 years before, and my son, and he's 18, and the conversation kind of went back to him, back and forth, what we were going to do with him, and he really wanted to follow his dad's footsteps, and I didn't want that. My footsteps were not fun to follow in. And so I started telling him the concept, and he literally in 3 days after me having a 2-hour conversation with him, come back with a schematic, drawn-out schematic of how it would work. Nice. And I was like, oh, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. So we literally would spend I'd get home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd spend till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. My wife about divorced me over it. On FaceTime and video chats and all the other Skypes and everything else that we could use. And through a period of about a year, we put it together. Nice. And I was telling one of the guys outside a while ago that we start off with, if you could imagine, 0.001 version, and each time it's a 0.00. We're now on version 11. Okay.
Well, I think one of the things I've started doing, to your point, and I got this from Jay Sammet, who's wrote Disrupt You, because you're really a disruptor, in some ways. And he said every day that you wake up, write down problems that you encounter that may or may not have a solution, right? And what you'll eventually find is, every day I write down X number of problems that I encounter that I think do not have a current solution to them. So what are they? What are those? Because that's where the money is, right? And then I say, which problem do I want to tackle? No, I don't want to tackle that one. Like the other day, we have this big nice pool and everything, and the problem that day was snakes and frogs. And I said, if somebody could...
Now that'd be a problem for me real quick.
But what I'm saying is, we didn't have any, but I was like, how could a person invent something or create something that would keep those things away from your outdoor property, right? And I'm thinking, man, what is it? Is there a solution to that? I don't know if there is or not, but it's just all these crazy things you come up with to say, hey, here's a problem, here's a solution. And if you start writing those problems up every day, you start saying, I don't want to tackle that problem. I don't want to tackle that problem. But that is a problem I want to tackle.
Well, a famous man once said, I have people to tackle those problems for me. I think it was Henry Ford. He goes, why are you sitting there asking me all these questions? I couldn't answer any of these questions.
Right.
I got people to tackle that
That's
problem
right.
for me.
That's right.
So I think you're right. What you're saying is what problems do I want to tackle as an entrepreneur with my experience level, and what problems do I want to push off on somebody else that has experience in that area?
So the Resolve Suite now is out there finding properties as we speak, right?
By the thousands.
Okay, and then there's a process for that, but that's really what the Resolve Suite does, right?
That's correct.
And people can purchase licensing, or not licensed, but they can affiliates.
You can. We've got two different programs. We've got a membership-based program. You can go to resolvesuite.com and look at it, and then we have a new product, I guess is a better way to say it. It's called an affiliate.
Yes.
And what we're doing is we're licensing basically where you have your we call it a war room, where you have a team of people that are being trained in a specific job in this process, and the software allows them to only work in that specific job, so it becomes kind of like a assembly line for the paperwork.
And they find the properties, right? Purchase the properties
data
at
miners.
very low amounts.
Very low, yeah.
Okay, and then turn around and sell those properties.
That's correct.
For high profits.
Well, it depends. I want to preface it with this. Yes, the answer to the question is yes, but a lot of times we find that the people are in situations. I'll give another example. A little old lady, she was almost 90 years old, very witty, still lived in her home, full of energy. Husband had always took care of everything for her. She had no idea what property taxes were. So we gave her a life estate to live in the property, rent-free, and ultimately ended up with the property. So, if she lives 5 years, lives 10 years, the system has done something bigger than ourselves too.
That's right.
And then obviously there's a lot of people that don't deserve to be back in their houses.
Right.
And in those cases, we'll sell the houses.
So a person that writes a book called Don't Look Me Up.
Yeah.
And that, obviously you can look a person up today, Google. I got home last night and my wife's mother was at our house staying, and she said, I looked up online and I saw what your net worth was. And I was like, Lord.
Yeah.
I said, where exactly did you see, and she's like, I'm so proud of you because that's a good net worth. But I was like, where did you find that?
It's called spookio.com.
But when you think about this, right, you wrote this book. Let's go all the way back and to where a lot of this adversity came from. Running away from home at 11 years old. What prompted that?
Necessity.
Okay.
Abusive
Okay.
Stepfather, mother in the early, I guess it would be the early 70s. I think women didn't have the opportunities that they do today. I think that's come a long ways. I'm sure it has a long ways to go. But in this particular case, my mother was a waitress. A little bit promiscuous, I guess is probably a good word to use. Not a lot of tools at her resources. So I just couldn't take it anymore. I had a brother that was 2 years younger than me, and one that was 6 years younger than me, and I ended up being the father figure at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, and pressure of it just got to me. So I don't want to give too much of my book away, but I crawled in a Greyhound bus in Memphis, Tennessee, and ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Man.
So
at 11 years old.
At 11 years old.
No, knew nobody in Tulsa?
Well, actually, my mother had once been married to a man. I won't mention his name, but he's actually dead now. But she had once been married to a man, and I knew he was from Oklahoma. I knew where he was, what town he was in. Unfortunately, when I got there, I found out that he'd remarried somebody else, and they didn't want me around. So I ended up living with a preacher. He called himself a preacher, but I don't really think he was a very good preacher. Some abuse happened, just kept fighting through it. Finally, I got 15, 16 years old, was a good athlete, strong, powerful kind of guy. And you probably can't tell that nowadays, but anyway, that's when things changed. Yeah. And I got away.
What's the biggest thing that you use today that you learned during that period? Because a lot of people that have some type of adversity, I grew up not in an abusive home toward me, but abusive toward my mother. She was married once for a period of time to what I would consider an alcoholic. He would go out and drink a lot, he'd come home, and I saw a lot of those things at 7, 8, 10 years old. Very instrumental period of my life. And so, I do think there's a lot of things I learned Even today, you know, a lot of people say, where does your ambition come from? Where does your fight come from? Where does your resolve come from? You know, and it's hard to really say, like where it came from. You just know you got it, right? What did you learn from that season of life that you really, really has helped you today?
You know, be honest with you, I had a lot of things I was thinking of when you were saying that, but the first thing that came to my mind immediately was, I think the most important part of anything you do in life is knowing when to get out of it. Mm-hmm. You know, just when to throw your chips in and walk away. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs just don't know, they get involved in something and they're so convinced in their ideas and they're so convinced that they're right that they end up failing miserably. In my particular situation, and they just don't know when to cut bait and run.
Right.
In my particular situation, I think I took out of that, hey, there are times when you just turn and walk away. Sometimes the best deals you'll ever do are the deals that you don't do. And I think that's probably what I took out of that the most.
Because there's a fine line between it being, I would just wrote down too convinced that you're right and having the fortitude to see an idea through to its conclusion, right? That's probably because that's hard for some people. When should I walk away? When should I stick it out and see something through to its conclusion as an entrepreneur? Because I may be one step away from a breakthrough, one person away from a breakthrough.
Well, and they could be.
Yeah.
But at what point in time has it affected you so badly, or that there's no recovering from it?
That's right.
And I've done it. I've had it happen in my life a couple of times. There was a point in time where I was offered hundreds of millions of dollars for one of my companies. I should have, but my ego and my arrogance said no. I'm 2 deals away from being worth $1 billion. Yeah. And boy, I sure do wish I had.
And what were you cashed out at personally? And when if you were sold?
Well, I mean, after taxes, probably about 60% of that. But it would have been a lot. Yeah. So, and that would have retired me for life. If you could retire a guy like me and you for life, I don't know if that's possible or not. I think we go till we die. I just think that's the way it is.
So, you get 16, successful athlete, using some of your drive, athleticism, pure talent, that kind of thing. Walk me through what happens when you graduate from school, high school.
Well, let me back up 1 year of high school because, I actually finally, kind of reconnected with my real father at the age of 16 years old and actually ended up coming back to Tennessee after the abuse and stuff in Oklahoma. And I was just about 17 years old and, went to McGavock High School for about 3 weeks. A big culture shock for a plaid shirt boy from Oklahoma, to say it nicely. And so they were a 5A state championship team that year, great baseball team, and I really fit in good as far as the team was concerned. Started shortstop day one, and 3 weeks later, Coach Brown was coming to me saying, "You need to change schools. You're going to get killed here." So, so ultimately, I went to Dawson Christian Academy. Was actually the janitor of the school. Dr. Gary Coker, very instrumental in my life. He said, "Look, no, you don't have no money. We want you here." It was our first year to have a baseball team, 1985, nice. And he goes, "We want you here. So in order to pay your tuition, you can be the janitor of the school and help." So I worked as a janitor of the school. And simultaneously, I started a little landscaping company on the side, mowing grass after school and after baseball games and stuff like that. And it grew. Just like, if you work it, it's going to grow. I don't care what you're doing. If you're working hard at it, it's going to grow. So I ended up selling that company and graduated from high school. I tell these people this all the time. I graduated with a 4.0 and I was 26th in my class. Figure that one out. But Dr. Coker allowed me a chance to be able to work and go to school, or I probably wouldn't have graduated high school. I didn't make it in college very long, that's for sure. I wasn't cut out for college. I needed to make money. Right. I didn't have the privileges of the support systems. Right. And back in the 85s and 86, there was either scholarships or you paid for it.
I got you. Yep. So out of necessity, you started really being an entrepreneur.
Correct.
To create businesses, making money. Okay. What was the first big business that you got involved in?
Big business. The first business I got involved in was a garden center at the age of 12, which was when I was with a preacher, and then that kind of gave me the entrepreneur spirit. Okay. Ultimately, I opened up a landscaping company, and I ended up selling it for a little bit of money. Okay. I mean, 18, 19 years old, $100,000, a lot of money in the 80s. Yes. And I took that money, invested in a little company called a Hoagie Hut. I know it's crazy, but I was taking sandwich shops and putting inside Exxon stations. I had a friend of mine owned a bunch of Exxon stations, and I did that and ended up selling them to Subway when Subway come to Tennessee, when they crossed the Mississippi River. And I probably should have held on to that one, shouldn't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then ultimately, I had a company called AAA Rental and Sales.
Okay.
And it was an incredible company for many, many years. 9/11 kind of got us. I was selling, office furniture and office equipment inside high-rise buildings all over the world. There wasn't a lot of furniture being sold in high-rise buildings after 2001, excuse me.
And you were brokering that deal. You weren't manufacturing the furniture, you were brokering.
I was buying, broker, and selling.
Okay.
I actually was leasing the furniture to them.
Okay.
So, deep story. But anyway, a lot of companies can't afford to go in and outfit a complete office, especially a 10-story building. So a lot of times they'll lease it because it's 100% write-off.
Okay.
So they can write that off. A lot of people don't realize that, but anytime you do a lease, it's a 100% write-off. If you buy the furniture, then you can only depreciate over a 7-year period. So, it's always advantageous to do leasing, especially if you can get a lease that doesn't have a high residual. Of course, there's a little bit of argument over whether or not it's a true lease or not, but most people do that. Okay. So ultimately, the AAA Rental and Sales, 2001. I keep saying 2011. I don't know why I do that, but 2001 happened, and that company come crashing down pretty quickly, which was my first real super adversity in business. I was stuck in bankruptcy for 5 or 6 years over the company, and it was because we had so many contracts with government agencies and stuff. It was a mess. I met a guy named Stephen Lefwich. From Lefwich, and Lefwich was kind of started mentoring me, taught me a lot of bankruptcy law, taught me a lot of business law, and ultimately that proved to be very valuable later on when I started a company called Electronic Depot. So, and it was a huge success. And then Circuit City went out of business.
Yeah. So to explain the electronic, because are you selling these businesses, these previous businesses, like the furniture, or did you just get out of that? You get out of the brokering the furniture business and then started the Electronic Depot?
No. Yes and no. I sold off divisions of it, and parts of it I just shut down because, in every business there's certain aspects of it that only you can do.
That's right.
It's very difficult to find somebody that can do everything that you can do as an entrepreneur and an owner. So I sold off parts of it, and other parts of it we just closed down. And we just couldn't sustain at the volume that we were once sustaining at, which led me into, because there toward the end we started buying furniture liquidation loads. And from the manufacturers, because I couldn't afford, and renting them out. We'd get one that had a little scratch on it. Well, they had scratches on them anyway by the time we delivered them. So we started buying liquidation loads, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something to this. I'm buying tractor trailer load of furniture for 20 grand that's got $80,000 worth of furniture in it, and then leasing it out and making a lot of money. So I decided that the liquidation was something I really wanted to continue to move into. So we wrote a software, and again, back to my roots. I'm a very dangerous software writer. You said I don't code, but I actually do. But it's usually messed up and has to be fixed by somebody else. So then Electronic Depot it just blossomed. It was at that time in the economy where everything was blossoming. Everything was going crazy. All the big retailers were going crazy. Best Buy and Circuit City and all of them guys. They were just tractor trailer loads of stuff that were being returned. They were just shipping to these liquidation companies and liquidating them. Well, I had a contract from Circuit City, and I was getting 50, 60 loads a week. And we were turning around selling them on eBay.
How did you get the contract?
Just friend of a friend, networking. People. Back up. We were the #1 seller on eBay for several years. And because we were selling so much on eBay, the word of mouth, and then networking, and next thing I know, I met a guy named Steve Stolberg, and he hooked me up with Circuit City, and
And you were buying the electronics, and selling them on eBay initially, right? And you just became big. That became big business for you.
Yeah, very big.
Why were people coming to you? Were they discounted? Were they?
It was heavily discounted, and we also had product that was. It was like, for illustration, back in the games were just booming. We were the only people that had Xboxes. We were the only people that had PS3s. Nintendos, Wii's. We were at heavily discounted prices. And let's be honest about it, most families in a middle class, they can't afford all these games for these kids. And everybody wanted one. And nobody wants to disappoint their kids.
There you go. There's a business model there, right?
Yeah, you don't want
Nobody wants to disappoint their kids. You're
No.
exactly right. So you pick up Circuit City as a huge customer.
Huge customer.
And you don't see, obviously, was there another recession that's coming? Was
You know,
that what hit it, or did what happened then?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it's a typical stereotype mistake for an entrepreneur.
Okay.
That the money it's never gonna end.
Yeah.
You know, it's so many guys get in business and they go to making money, especially big money.
Yeah.
And they think, I got this.
And what's big money for the listener out there that's watching? I mean, when a person starts bringing in some big money, what does that mean?
Well, Electronic Depot did around 250 million a year, had 14 locations.
Okay.
I was making big money.
That's big money.
That's big money.
That's big money.
It didn't feel like
Mama,
big.
you think that's big money over there? That's big money. All right. His
So-
wife's over here. You can't see her right now.
So yeah, got somebody protect me from him. Anyway, that's what the sales were, and the net of that was we were usually net somewhere in the 40 percentile, sometimes even 50 and 60%. So it was heavy profits, and it was a big business, and it really boomed for about 10 years. There's still companies out there today like Essex that are still in business today.
Right.
Robert Eccles and
Yep.
good dude, and they've done very, very well. But my particular situation, I thought the money would never end, and I kind of started living the life of a guy that thought the money would never end.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I looked up and it ended.
It just stopped.
Just looked
Shut up. What,
2008 happened, and it just was a mess. And letting other people run your company or be involved in your company, and then transactions are happening inside your company, you're not even aware of it, but you're accountable for it.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Which is where the concept of "Don't Look Me Up" come from.
That's exactly right. And this is a lesson for everybody out there, because I'm telling you, if you think it won't happen to you,
Yes.
you are sadly mistaken.
Yes.
It's impossible for any entrepreneur to see everything happen inside their company.
Right.
So the integrity of the people that you hire is really, really important.
Right.
And how do you judge integrity until after you've seen bad integrity?
Right.
So, and when you have hundreds of employees, how do you weed that out? Now we use human resources and people like that, but they're human too.
That's right.
So, with modern technology, you can do a lot of different type of searches. But I guess it comes down to this. I just wasn't paying attention to what I needed to be paying attention to. Ultimately, creating the ultimate problem. Two FBI agents showed up on my front door and said, "Hey, Scott, tell us about this." And quite honestly, I didn't know what they were talking about. Well, as time went along, I realized real quick what they were talking about, and it was basically, we shut down our doors, closed our company, and 2008 recession, and some product didn't get delivered, and it could have been a daisy chain of people, but these people just worked for me, and I just held my hand up and said, this is my responsibility.
What does daisy chain mean?
Well, I obviously didn't do everything in that process,
Right.
And I didn't. The last thing I want is somebody that is under my leadership or tutelage to be
Gotcha.
in trouble for something that ultimately I was,
Right.
that I'm responsible for making sure doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that to happen to anybody, a secretary or an accountant.
I got you.
But
But the lesson for the people watching this, as it was growing at big scale, you took your eye off the ball a little bit.
Absolutely took my ball.
And they were growing with scale. I mean, I remember the first big real estate company I worked with was Old South Properties.
Yeah.
And I came in right after one of their employees had just stolen $700,000 from their company, and they were setting up separate accounts and and funneling, basically doing budgets on the house. And that person was in charge of the budgets on the house, and they were taking a percentage of that budget and putting it funneling it into their own accounts, and it didn't get caught. And even when it did get caught, that person they didn't have that money. So they never got the money back.
Well, I had even funnier things happen. I'm going to tell one little part of it. I'm not going to tell. You can figure out what division did it. But I actually had credit cards that employees actually put, would order a credit card in my name and order a credit card in their name. As a secondary card holder.
Yep.
And I didn't even know that it was there, because I hardly ever pulled my credit bureau at the time. Now we've got things to monitor that, but at the time I never did that. And they'd spend $50,000, $100,000 on my credit card. I find out a year later. So, or when the credit card company started going crazy calling me.
Right.
But then they had the phone number changed and the home address changed. So there's all kinds of things that happen. That's why it's just so important to make sure that people have good integrity around you, because they can sure make yours look poor if you don't.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So that business knocked out.
Knocked out.
Do you have money put aside? Are you broke? Are you? I mean, that's an intrigue thing. We're sitting here trying to figure out, hey, what happened next?
Well, we're way past broke. I mean, we're like, how are we going to pay the attorneys?
Right.
And luckily I go back to that 30-year friendship with Stephen Leftwich. He was a bankruptcy attorney. He stepped in. He started a bankruptcy process for me. And that was, I think it was 2010, 8, 9, 10, but around 9 or 10. He started the bankruptcy process for me. And then I kind of stumbled on this. Okay. And I was like, I'm starting to make a little money here. I really don't want to file bankruptcy again.
Okay.
And I'd been through bankruptcy so much from the previous one that had happened, and I was in it for so long that I could have been a bankruptcy attorney at this particular stage after 5 years of spending in a bankruptcy court.
Right.
When you walk in and the judges say hi to you, you know you've been there too long. So I saw these opportunities inside this, and so I started using the concept of RESOLVE Suite to purchase real estate.
Okay.
Ultimately making enough money where I went back and said, dismiss me out of my bankruptcy. I want to pay all my debts back.
Okay.
So I had in 2010, 2011, I had all of my, I had not discharged, I had it dismissed. Okay. And went back and paid all the debts back.
Okay. Interesting.
So,
nice.
So I thought, okay, I'm free and clear, everything's good, everybody's happy. And then in
Right.
2014, that's when the two guys showed up and said, hey, you missed one. I was like, well, it's easy to miss what you don't know.
Right.
So a lot of people go back, well, was there intent, was there not intent? Read my book, don't look me up, make your own decision on that.
Right.
Was there or was there not? I think if you read the book, you'll get the real whole picture of it. But unfortunately, we have this, like you said, this thing called Google.
Right.
And I think if people, about once every 100th time they type Google, they like dislocate a finger or something.
Right.
The world would be a better place. Because you automatically assume if it's on there, it's absolutely accurate.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, it's just not the complete truth.
That's right. That's right.
So that's where Don't Look Me Up come from. And I was like, you know what? And the next phase is okay. I have 12,000 followers on my Facebook now,
Right.
and 12,000 on all my, 12 to 20 on all of them now.
Right.
So now I think the next book is I guess you looked me up.
I guess you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you tackle that up front when you meet people? Do you say, "Hey, if you're going to look me up, you're going to see this"? And do you feel like compelled to?
Well, I almost have to. I'm going to give. I got to tell the story. It's a great story. I have a. I'm not going to say names, but I have a friend of mine who is a preacher. Go figure. And he was doing a $10 million deal with me.
Okay.
And obviously he did not Google me. Okay. And we had 5 or 6 or 7 meetings. And he finally came out to the house on a Sunday afternoon, him and his wife, and we had a great conversation. And we walked back to the back where I store all my collector cars and stuff, and we were talking, and just I really liked him. He's a really cool dude. And I said, look, I've got to talk to you about something. Before you get into a $10 million deal with me, I need to tell you about what happened back in the past.
Right.
So I told this to him. And he literally stood up, walked out of the building, walked up and got his wife, got in his car. My wife can validate this. He literally left. And I was like, well, I guess that deal's over with.
Right, right.
So a couple of hours went by, and I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'd never seen anybody react that way. I mean, at least say, hey, but I'm sorry, I can't do business with you, but never just walk off.
Sure.
So a couple of hours went by, and the phone rang. It was him. And I didn't answer because I was a little aggravated, 3 or 4 times it rang, I didn't answer. I was still aggravated. The following Thursday, he calls me again. This was on a Sunday. And something just told me to answer the phone. So I answered the phone. I said, yes, sir. He goes, Scott, don't hang up. I was like, he goes, look, we want to do the deal with you. We don't want you to back out. We're not going to back out. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and the first words out of my mouth is, look, I'm not interested in doing a deal with you. Right. Because if your resolve is so little today, how can I have faith in your resolve in a big monster deal when something really tragic happens that affects you? This don't even affect you. This affected my life. Right. It didn't affect yours. So how do I know you're going to have the resolve to stay in here with me when the time's right? So I'm not interested in your project. So I turned his project down. So he ended up inviting. He said, look, will you do me a favor? Will you put on a suit and tie? Will you please come to an event tonight? He goes, drive one of your fancy cars and come on out. I said, no, I'm not coming. Well, my wife said, let's go. So we went out, sat down with him. He introduced me to some really cool people, and we kind of made amends over it. I still didn't do the project, though.
Okay, all right. And when you say a $10 million deal, give the viewer what kind of deals are we talking about?
Well, that particular deal was a condo project in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. It was that's actually really more than a $10 million deal. I think I just used that number off the top of my head.
Okay.
But it was 32 condos, $350,000, $400,000 condos. Right behind a building that I own in Mount Juliet. I owned the land, and then I contracted with him to do the construction and do the deal for him. So I carried it through the development process and had it ready and approved, and he bought it from me and was going to come in and build the condos, hire my construction company.
So I'm listening to you talk about this Resolve. Obviously, that's the name of what you're doing now, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole story's coming full circle, right?
Yeah.
And you believe, obviously, in having that Resolve, so you named it, right? Resolve Suite, Resolve Capital, Resolve Financials, Resolve Commercial, all of that. So if a person says, okay, Scott Lumley, what does he do? So if a person comes to me and says, I like that Scott Lumley guy that was on your show. What exactly does he do? What would you tell him today?
I resolve problems.
There you go. Right.
I mean, that's what I'm a problem solver.
Okay.
I've had problems my entire life and adversity my entire life. I've had to look for ways to solve the problems.
Right.
So when I started Resolve Financials initially, it was resolving problems. It was going in and helping people. It was going in and helping people, or even helping myself, to figure out a way to navigate through whatever the problem was that they might have in business.
Okay.
So I started off, still do a lot of consulting.
Okay.
I'll go in and evaluate a situation, look at and determine what I think they need to do to change to be more profitable.
Okay. So that's Resolve Financial. Resolve Capital is raising money?
Resolve Capital is a PPM, a private placement memorandum. That's a fund that we use to purchase the homes and stuff through the Resolve Suite.
Gotcha. Okay. And Resolve Suite finds them, right? And Resolve Commercial is
my portfolio company.
Portfolio, and that would be for the viewer what?
Basically, I have strip centers, restaurants. I own two of the oldest buildings in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I'm kind of proud of those two buildings.
Okay.
One was built in 1908. It was the old bank and the old post office, and we went in and renovated them totally. And you've got some gun ranges and some other things like that. I own the buildings.
Is that typically done with partners or typically on your own?
Well, I had partners until 2014.
Okay.
And then they all decided they didn't want to be partners with me anymore. So, which is okay, because what it's done is it actually worked out to my benefit.
Okay.
That was something else too, is when all this happened, and it's really important you realize this, folks. When all this happened, not only did I lose my partners, I lost all my banking too. So all the banks bailed on me too. So I literally was scrambling for millions and millions of dollars to keep all this together, and we did. Okay. I didn't lose a single product. I didn't lose a single property. As a matter of fact, it went the other direction. I ended up compounding it, and which showed me that I didn't have to have a partner.
Right.
And in the beginning, you get in these big deals, you think you need a partner, but you don't.
All right, so let's finish with this. Because it's a fascinating story, right?
Well, thank you.
And a lot more is in the book.
Yeah.
And you got a show that people can watch every week.
Yep, scottlumley.tv.
Okay. All right, and that show is just really where you're interviewing scrappers, people that are out there in the world who have a story, they've done something from nothing. Very inspiring, right?
Yes.
So talk to the people out there who are interested in building some serious wealth. What do you believe? Because I'll be honest with you, I was a high school basketball coach for a decade. I don't know if you know that or not. A women's basketball coach, and we took a place that never won, turned into a dominant place. It's now won 6 championships of the last 8. Okay, and that's where I started. And then people were asking me, how did you do it? Right. So I wrote books about it. Then that led me out to speaking and coaching and training. And then I started building a coaching business. And then I got all this advice. As we begin to generate revenue and I had excess cash, now I'm getting all kinds of counsel about what to do with that money.
Well, they didn't counsel you before you had it, did they?
They didn't counsel me at all before I had it.
Are they going to cry at your funeral?
Probably. I don't know. Probably not.
I don't know that I'd be listening to them then.
Yeah. So that's your criteria, right?
That's my
criteria. Wouldn't counsel you before you had it.
That's exactly right.
And they won't be crying at the funeral.
That's exactly right. That is my criteria. And I know it sounds terrible to say it that way, but it's truthful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is truthful. That people that are not willing to be there through the entire thing are not the people you want to surround yourself with.
Right.
You want people that are scrap. That's why I admire the scrappers.
Right.
But to answer your question, I have never, I mean, every business, I've been in a lot of businesses, and I've had a lot of successes, and I've had a lot of failures. Every one of them I've extracted something out of. And I think everything good that I ever extracted out of every problem that I ever had has went into Resolve Suite. And all of a sudden now, I could take this software tonight and sell it for hundreds of millions of dollars to a Warren Buffett or a big boy. But I haven't succeeded at anything except making money.
Okay.
And although we all are here to make money, we do these shows because we want to make money. But there is a bigger thing than making money.
Right.
And the bigger thing than making money is watching other people make money. And I truly have really, we've got one guy that's made $1.6 million in 4 months.
Nice.
And to watch, today I saw him before I came here. He come up and hugged me and said, you're like a father figure to me. And to watch all these kids, these young entrepreneurs, I call them kids because everybody under my age is a kid. Right. But to watch all these guys mold their lives, we had one kid, I'm gonna call him a kid. His hair was down to here, and in 6 weeks, he's got the potential of making $31,000 profit. Nice. He went and cut his hair off. Yes. Started dressing nice. Yes. Not that that's the most important thing, but it does command some respect. It's transforming. Yes. So to see these people growing, that's far more important to me. And I think that Resolve Suite allows you to do it on a very low level. And what I'm talking about is 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000, or you can do 2, 3, 4, 5 million if you choose to, or even hundreds of millions. Right. It all comes down to how deep you want to dig.
Does a person have to have a background and skill set to do that?
Absolutely not.
So they could start. So you could take me tomorrow.
So
Jack, I'm quitting coaching. I'm going down to work with Scott, and we're going to go make millions of dollars.
Well,
okay?
I'm gonna give you a testimonial. I've got it on my phone here somewhere. Where my phone is. I took a lady and a man from Canada that's never been in real estate in their lives. I worked with them for 3 days inside of our workshop. And actually, one day we actually took the workshop to my war room. And they actually worked beside my employees, and we mentored them in 3 days. And in 3 days, they went back to Canada, and they called me, and they've got 4 deals. Okay. The day after they got back, they navigated through 4 deals. I have another gentleman, and these are not untypical stories. These are all very typical stories. I've got one guy who was 65 years old, hairdresser, worked 3 days inside of our. He's a barber, hairdresser. That's the new word. I get a hairdresser, he does barber. But anyway,
that's right.
He worked 3 days inside of our system, and on his 4th day, he made I believe it was a little over $100,000 on his 4th day. Nice. So these sounds like fabricated and silly numbers. Right. I wouldn't believe it if I was on the other side listening to this either. That's why you need to come look. Right. You need to come see it for yourself. You can go to resolvesuite.com and read about it. But you really got to sit down, come to the war room and sit down and see what's happening in there to truly get a full grasp of it. Yeah. The minute you do it, you're hooked. You're done.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do that. I'd love to come see it. I'd love to come sit in. And more than anything, I'd love to make some money. All right, big guy. Hey.
I like making money.
Well, I think too many times in the South we're kind of brought up to think. Here's what I found out from running a business. I can't expand. I can't grow. I can't market. I can't hire more people. I can't help more people without any money. And until you get that, you understand what you until
clearly.
People get that, that's why I push our sales team so hard to sell, because without that we can't open more greatness factories. We can't have more people. We can't. We're just limited in what we can do. And if there's ways to make it, but I do think as an entrepreneur, now I've owned this business 10 years, I am now interested more than ever in making easy, lucrative, and fun money versus hard money.
Well, can't's not a word I ever say. A lot of people do use that word. I think if they take out the English or out of our vocabulary, they'll probably find that they could do a lot more, as you well know, as a coach. But that's why you always should do what you can do, and then build upon it. Yes. Don't try to, like I did. I went out here trying to slap home runs for the first 40 years of my life. Right. And every once in a while I hit one. Right. But it didn't do any good because I had 55 strikeouts leading up to it. So now I try to take and just make inch by inch by inch.
That's good, man. It's been a fascinating interview. Thank you for coming to the Greatness Factory.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I'm excited about coming and checking out the War Room.
Well, we're looking forward to having you on my show.
I'm excited, man. We may not get 4 million views on this, but we're sure going to try to get as many as we can.
Well, it only takes one good one.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank
I appreciate
you, sir.
you, man.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Now, this has been Michael Burt, Super Coach. If you're not spending time with fascinating people, you know, when I wrote the book Person of Interest, it's really about people that live fascinating lives. They go to fascinating places, they hang around fascinating people, and they get fascinating results, okay? And so if you're not spending time on a regular basis with those people, you need to be. Scott Lumley, check him out, resolvesuite.com, right? And he's got a lot of cool things going on. You really, really need to give this guy a look, because the first time I talked to him on the phone, after watching his stuff, I came back to my staff, Eric White, and I said, this is an interesting cat. I want to spend some time with this guy. And I don't say that about everybody.
Well, I appreciate
Sometimes
that
we come across people and I'm like, I'm out. But this guy right here is the real deal. Thank you guys. Have a great day.